Welcome to the Lassie video for information processing. So we need to talk about what information processing is. It's the degree to which you build bridges between knowledge you already have and new knowledge you want to acquire. So it's how you process and organize new knowledge so that you can go back and access it when you need to. What was your information processing score on the Lassie? If it was really bad, this is going to help you. If not, it'll still help because there's some great tips and ideas. So go find your score and think about that. And then write down the answers to these questions. Have you ever had trouble remembering information you really thought you knew, like on a quiz or test? How do you learn something new? Do you use different strategies for learning depending on the course or subject? And do you ever make any connection between what you already knew about a subject and what you just learned? If you're with a friend, compare with your neighbor. If not, hang on and we'll move on in just a second. So in 15 seconds, memorize as many of these words as you possibly can. I'll go to the previous screen and then we'll come back. The sky was falling and soaking. And this probably is a little bit longer than 15 seconds, but whatever you do, don't write these down. Tumbling, plummeting, scared and confused. Yet. Green and slick and heaven sent. Our love began with such an event, though the storm didn't seem too amused. It's good to be back on memory lane. So we're gonna look away for about 20 seconds and then we'll come back. And you can write down what words you remember. In the frog rain, do you remember our faces colliding on the walk in our shelter races? You blushed at me, a lucky fellow. You blushed at me, a lucky fellow. Okay, so hopefully you've written the words down. If you remember words like sleep, better, rest, or tired, they weren't even on the list, or sleep wasn't on the list. Many people write it down because it's related to the other words. Thinking about a common theme or activity that each word shared could have helped you remember what was on the list, so grouping things together that are similar can help. Never forget that amphibian downpour, the day that led to our engagement. Okay, so Lassie also talks about something called the memory continuum. It's shorter-term memory versus longer-term memory. You make decisions on how important each piece of information is and whether or not to keep it, like I said, otherwise sorted into shorter long-term memory. So color of traffic light versus date of your birth, you're not likely to remember what the color of the traffic light was yesterday at 5:05 p.m., but chances are you're probably going to remember when you were born. And hopefully how to operate your computer. I know some of us are terrible at that, like mine, or me, I should say. Okay, so now short-term memory, again, it's like someone's phone number. You know, this isn't going to work if you're trying to learn something that will be on an exam in the future. So think about some problems that you think you would run into if you tried using short-term memory techniques while reading a chapter in one of your classes, and this is pretty easy. I can tell you what would happen if I did. I'd fail my test and I wouldn't remember anything, so try not to do that. And then there are a couple strategies you can use to remember information that you need to recall later, other than just reading and highlighting. It's active rehearsal strategies, elaboration strategies, and organizational strategies. Highlighting is included in this, but there's a lot more techniques. Okay, so you can use mnemonic devices for active rehearsal strategies, which would be PEMDAS, which is for math. It's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It stands for parentheses, and I can't remember the rest right now. Horrible mnemonic device. Reading and writing something more than once, which is helpful, and I like to use note cards for when I'm trying to study things like Spanish. You write one word on the front and then the word in the opposite language on the back. Elaboration strategies would be things like mental imagery, analogies. Wood is to brick as blank is to blank. Teaching someone else the material always helps. Also creating and answering your own questions, which is what Cornell notes do. So you have your question on the left-hand side and your answer on the right. Organizational strategies would be dividing material into meaningful parts and diagramming. When you divide things into meaningful parts, again, this is where grouping comes in. So that could be helpful if you're in a biology class and you need to think about specific species of animals or cells, what they have in common. And in a second I'll show you an example of diagramming. It's not the only example, but it's one of them, and I believe it's for the weather cycle. So we'll look at that in just a second. And so you see somebody has made a little diagram that shows the water cycle, how it evaporates, how it falls, how it flows and moves. And it's pretty simple. It doesn't have to be fancy artwork, just something that helps you remember. So there's something called fluency and something called flexibility, and knowing about many strategies that you can use to learn and remember is crucial for your college success. But you need to know more than just one or two strategies. So fluency refers to the number of strategies you know, while flexibility refers to the number of different categories of strategies that you know. And again, some of the categories that we talked about earlier, there are techniques within those overall groups of strategies that you can use. And so it's important that you know the difference between the two. And last but not least, work smart and not just hard. Working hard means putting in actual quantity of effort, how many hours a day you do things, and how hard you make it on yourself. If you're working smart, it refers to the quality of effort you put forth. You may do something for 6 hours, and if you don't put your heart and soul into it and you really are enthusiastic about it and try your hardest, it's not going to be as good as if you did do all those things. So you have to try to find a balance. Work hard, but try to work smart too. So that is the end of our presentation, and thank you very much, and good luck.